So students, we are going to discuss chapter number 3, that is the drainage system of our country. And in this chapter, we are going to discuss in details about the river system of our country. Okay, that is the drainage system of our country. So as we all know that India is a country with different types of landforms. Okay, India is a country with varied landforms. Okay, and because of the having different types of landforms actually in our country, okay, we have like many numerous rivers. Okay, we have various rivers flowing through our country. Okay, and some of these rivers, they originate in the high Himalayan region, and some of the rivers, they have its origin in the Western Ghats. Okay, so like India is considered as a land of rivers because many number of rivers, they flow through our country, and it makes India a land of rivers actually. Okay, and this is also a reason that India is a country which is having enough supply of water throughout the year. Okay, see. So the term drainage, okay, what does this term drainage basically refers to? The term drainage basically describes the river system of an area. Okay, what does the term drainage refers to actually? It basically means the river system of any particular area, okay, any particular geographical area. So if you look at the physical map of India, you will notice that many numerous small streams, okay, many small streams, they flow in different directions. Okay, they originate in different directions, in different locations, and they flow in different directions, and ultimately they join the main river. Okay, so what is happening is, suppose the main river is there, and many numerous small tributaries, small streams and all, okay, they flow in different direction, and they ultimately join the main river actually. So that entire geographical area which is being drained by the main river and its tributaries is known as the drainage basin. Okay, so you see, you will notice that the small streams flowing from the different directions, they come together to form the main river, which ultimately drains into large water body such as a lake or a sea or an ocean, and the area drained by a single river system is called a drainage basin. Okay, so these numerous streams of the main river, okay, they originate at different locations and they flow in different directions, and ultimately some of the small streams, they join the main river, and the main river, they drain into the oceans or in the sea actually. Okay, like in case of our country, we see that most of the rivers of our country, they drain into the Bay of Bengal, and some of them, they drain into the Arabian Sea. Okay, so the particular geographical area, okay, a particular geographical area which is being drained by a single river and its tributaries is known as the drainage basin. Okay, for example, the part of the northern plains, okay, the entire northern plains of our country is drained by the river Ganga and its tributaries. So the entire northern plains is a part of the Ganga drainage system. Okay, it is a part of the Ganga drainage basin. Similarly, in this in the same way, actually, there are many rivers like the Indus, the Brahmaputra, the Godavari, the Krishna, the Kaveri, and all. Okay, these main rivers, along with the tributaries, they supply water to a very larger area. Okay, to a very large geographical area, and that large geographical area is known as the drainage basin of that particular river. Okay. So if you a closer observation of map will indicate that any elevated area, okay, such as a mountain or an upland, which separates two drainage basin is known as an water divide. Okay, so in the map of India, in the physical map of India, actually, you will notice that there are certain elevated portions. Elevated portion means uplifted part. Okay, like the areas which are higher in elevation as compared to its surrounding area actually. So those elevated part or elevated portion of the earth surface actually, from where the river originate, and they flow in different directions actually. Okay, that elevated portion is known as the water divide. Okay, now the question is why it is considered as a water divide actually, because that elevated portion, okay, it divides the drainage basin into two types actually. Okay, it divides the drainage basin into two drainage basin. That is why it is known as a water divide. Like in case of Jammu and Kashmir, okay, in case of Jammu and Kashmir, basically, okay, the northwestern part of Jammu and Kashmir is mainly drained by the Indus River, okay, and the southern part of Jammu and Kashmir is mainly drained by the Satluj River actually. Okay, And in between this two river basin, actually there is an uplifted part actually. Okay, and just because of this uplifted portion, the two rivers, okay, they form a separate drainage basin, and the water, they flow in two different directions, two opposite directions actually. Okay, so this is the reason that it is considered as a water divide. Okay, that particular areas are known as the water divide actually. See, so this diagram basically it tries to explain that how does the water divide actually look like actually. Okay, suppose this is a landscape. Okay, it is a relief feature, and here you see that an uplifted portion is there, uplifted area is there. Okay, and which divides the drainage basin of two areas, means which divides the drainage basin into two halves. On one side, one important river is there, a large river is there, and its tributaries, small tributary, and the streams are there. Okay, and they form a separate drainage basin. And on the other side, you see here that another important river is there, main river is there, along with its tributaries and the streams and all, and they form a separate drainage basin. Okay, and in between this two drainage basin, you see an uplifted landmass is there. So this uplifted landmass or the land area is known as the water divide. Okay, so like some of the important drainage basins of the world, okay, they have been formed by some of the most important rivers of the world. Okay, like the Amazon River, it forms the world's largest drainage basin. Okay, the Amazon River, it forms the world's largest drainage basin. Okay, so you may be getting a question that which rivers forms the largest drainage basin in the world. So in that case, the answer is going to be the Amazon River. And in case of India, India is a country, or India is a land of numerous rivers. Many rivers, they originate in the Himalayas and in the Peninsular Plateau region actually. Okay, and among these rivers, the largest drainage basin is being formed by the river Ganga. Okay, the river Ganga has formed the largest drainage basin in our country. The entire northern plains, okay, it is said that the entire northern plains has been formed, means it comes under the Ganga river basin actually. Okay, it comes under the Ganga drainage basin. Okay, so on the basis of the relief features, as India is a country of varied landforms, different types of relief features can be found in our country. Okay, so on the basis of these different characteristics of the landforms, varied landforms actually, in our country, the drainage system has mainly been divided into two types. Okay, the Indian rivers or the Indian drainage system has mainly been divided into two types, such as the Himalayan rivers and the peninsular rivers, or you can say the Himalayan drainage system and the peninsular drainage system. Okay, so now we are going to discuss the characteristics of these Himalayan rivers and the peninsular rivers, or the basic differences between the Himalayan rivers and the peninsular rivers. Okay, so the two types of drainage basins, okay, on the basis of variations in the relief features, two types of drainage basins has been formed in our country, or drainage systems has been formed in our country. That is the Himalayan rivers, the Himalayan river system, and the peninsular river system. So now let us have some information about the Himalayan rivers. Okay, what are these Himalayan rivers? From where do they originate, and what are their specific characteristics? Okay, and as well as we will be discussing about the peninsular rivers, like from where do they originate, what are their characteristics, okay, and how they are different from the peninsular Himalayan rivers. So first we are going to start with the Himalayan rivers. So apart from originating from the two major physiographic regions of India, the Himalayan and the peninsular rivers, okay, apart from originating from the two major physiographic regions of India, the Himalayan and the peninsular rivers are different from each other in many ways. Okay, so the basic difference between the Himalayan and the peninsular rivers is that the Himalayan rivers, they has its origin in the higher altitudinal areas of the Himalayas, in the higher ranges of the Himalayas. And on the other hand, the peninsular rivers, they have its origin in the Western Ghat, in the central highlands. Okay, so this is the main difference between the Himalayan and the peninsular rivers. But apart from this, okay, but apart from its origin, actually, there are various other differences. Okay, there are various other differences between the Himalayan and the peninsular rivers. Most of the Himalayan rivers, they are perennial in nature. Okay, most of the Himalayan rivers, they are perennial in nature. So the term perennial basically refers to having a continuous supply of water. Okay, So the Himalayan rivers, they have a continuous supply of water throughout the year. Okay. It means that they have water throughout the year, and these rivers, they receive water from rain as well as from melted snow from the lofty mountains. Okay. That means the Himalayan rivers, they have water supply throughout the year. And from where do they get this water? Okay. They get this water, continuous supply of water from the melting of the snow, from the melting of the glaciers, as well as from the rainfall, okay, which is being received in the higher altitudinal areas of the Himalayas. Okay. And this is the reason that the Himalayan rivers are perennial in nature. Okay. And they have a continuous supply of water. So two major Himalayan rivers are the Indus and the Brahmaputra. Okay. The two major Himalayan rivers, that is the Indus and the Brahmaputra, they originate from the north of the mountain ranges. Okay. North of the mountain ranges means in the northern part of the Himalayas. Okay. Means not in the Indian part of the Himalayas actually, but on the Tibetan part of the Himalayas, this Indus and the Brahmaputra, they originate. Okay. But whereas the Ganga river, it originates from the Indian territory. Okay. It has its origin from the Indian territory. But the Indus and the Brahmaputra, they has its origin in the northern part of the Himalaya, that is on the other side of the Himalayas, in the Tibetan region, near Lake Mansarovar. Okay. Near Lake Mansarovar in Tibet, both the river Indus and the river Brahmaputra has its origin. Okay. So one, it flows, the river Indus actually, okay, after originating near Lake Mansarovar, actually, they flow towards the western side, entered India through the Ladakh region, and after flowing through the Kashmir region, they entered into Pakistan. Whereas the Brahmaputra, it flows for a long distance in the Tibetan part, and then it enters India through Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, after that it enters India through Arunachal Pradesh. After flowing through Arunachal Pradesh, it enters Assam, and ultimately it enters Bangladesh before joining the ocean. Okay, before joining the Bay of Bengal. Okay. So the two major Himalayan rivers, that is the Indus and the Brahmaputra, they originate from the north of the mountain regions. Okay. And they have cut through the mountains, making gorges. Okay. And they have entered the Indian territory by making the gorges, that is the valleys and all. Okay. They have, because of the higher flow, because of the rivers, they flow at a very like higher speed actually. Okay. And they cause lot of erosional activity. So because of this fast flowing nature and erosional activity, they have cut through the mountains, they have made the gorges and the valleys, and they entered India actually. Okay, they entered our Indian territory. So basically the Himalayan rivers, they have a long course from their source to the sea. Okay, almost all the Himalayan rivers, they have a long course. Okay, they flow for a longer distance from the oceans. Okay, sorry, from the origin to the sea. Means from the source where they are originating, okay, till the sea, they flow for a long distance, actually, very large distance. Okay, like the Indus, the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra, okay, they flow for a very long distance, actually. Okay, the river Ganga is the longest river in our country. The river Ganga is the longest river in our country, and it flows for 2,525 kilometers. The river Ganga flows for 2,525 kilometers in our country. Okay, so it is the longest river of our country. Okay, so like from the length of river Ganga only, like it becomes very much clear to us that other rivers, okay, the Indus and the Brahmaputra, they also has a long course actually. Okay, they also has a long course, and and they ultimately join the Brahmaputra, they join the Bay of Bengal, and the Indus, they join it joins the Arabian Sea. So the course of the river can be divided into three sections. Okay, the rivers after originating in the Himalayan region, basically the Himalayan rivers. Okay, so the Himalayan rivers after originating in the higher altitudinal regions of the Himalayas, okay, they flow from different Himalayan parts. They flow through the different mountainous areas, and they enter the plain areas. And after flowing for a long distance in the plain areas, they ultimately drain into the oceans. Okay, they ultimately drain into the Bay of Bengal or either in the Arabian Sea actually. Okay, so basically the course of the Himalayan rivers has been mainly divided into three sections. Okay, the Himalayan rivers or the course of the rivers has been divided into three sections. That is the upper course, the middle course, and the lower course. See, so the Himalayan rivers, they perform intensive erosional activity in their upper courses and carry huge loads of sand and silt. So the Himalayan rivers, they perform intensive erosional activity in the upper course, in the higher altitudinal areas. Okay, as because they flow from a greater height, so the speed of the water is very like high actually. Okay, the water, it flows at a very higher speed. Okay, and they cause lot of erosional activity actually. Okay, and apart from causing lot of erosional activity, they also carry along with them huge deposits of sand and silt. Okay, they also carry along with them huge deposit of sand and silt. And this sand and the silt deposits are being carried by the river to the lower course, and they finally deposit in the foothills. Okay, they finally deposit in the foothills, and which has led to the formation of the plains. Okay, which has led to the formation of the northern plains. Actually. So basically, in the higher altitudinal areas, in the upper course of the river, actually, the main characteristics of the Himalayan river is that they cause much erosional activity. Okay, and they carry huge loads of sand and silt from the upper course. In the middle and the lower courses, they have these rivers, they form the meanders, the oxbow lakes, and many other depositional features in their floodplains. Okay. So in the middle and the lower courses, okay, in the middle and the lower courses, the middle course basically refers to when the rivers, they enter the low-lying areas, okay, the low altitudinal areas, okay, till the foothills, okay, in the low-lying, the mid-Himalayan region actually, okay, in the mid-Himalayan region to the lower Himalayan region actually, to like you can say the Sivaliks, okay, the Sivaliks and the lesser Himalaya actually, okay, so when the Himalayas, after flowing from the greater Himalaya, they entered the Sivaliks range. Okay, they enter the lesser Himalaya and then the Sivaliks range actually. This part comes under the middle course. Okay, and when they enter the plain areas, actually, it mainly forms the lower course of the river. Okay. So basically, in the middle course and in the lower course of the river, they form meanders, the oxbow lakes, and many other depositional features in their floodplains. Okay. So the rivers, they carry along with them the sediments, okay, from the higher altitudinal areas. And these sediments get deposited in the middle course and in the lower course actually. And by the deposition of the sediments, different types of land features are being formed. Okay. So these different types of depositional features are known by different names, okay, such as the meanders, okay, the oxbow lake, the deltas. Okay, these are the depositional features of the rivers actually. Okay, so what is meander? Meander basically refers to when the rivers, they flow in a S-like pattern. When the rivers, they flow in a zigzag condition, okay, like it makes a S-like pattern actually. It is known as the meandering. It is known as a meandering river. That means the river is forming a meander and it is flowing. Okay, so here you can see in the middle course that the river is flowing, making a S-like formation actually. Okay, and it is known as the meander. Okay, and in this meanders actually, what happens sometimes because of the deposition of the sediments, okay, the river, they cannot flow in a straight way, okay, and they have to like change their direction. Okay, the rivers, they have to change their direction and they start flowing from another way actually. Okay, start flowing through different direction actually. So the part of the meander, okay, which gets detached when the river starts flowing from the another way, from another direction actually, that detached portion of the meanders, it forms a lake-like pattern. Okay, and this lake or the water deposit is known as the oxbow lake. Okay, which is an important characteristics of the Himalayan rivers in the lower course actually. And before the rivers, they drain into the Bay of Bengal or they drain into the Arabian Sea, like before joining it into the oceans actually, they deposit all the sediments. Okay, means whatever sediments they have brought actually, they deposit all those sediments at the mouth of the river, means before draining into the oceans actually. Okay, and a very marshy area is being formed. Okay, and this marshy area is known as the delta. Okay, so these deltas are mainly formed by the sediments deposit, okay, by the sediments which are being deposited by the rivers, okay, before entering into the or before draining into the oceans actually. Okay, so here you can see that the river, Himalayan rivers, basically it flows through three different courses: the upper course, the middle course, and the lower course. And in its course, okay, it makes different types of land features, different types of depositional features actually. Okay, so some of the important characteristics of the Himalayan rivers are The Himalayan rivers are perennial in nature. Okay, they have a continuous supply of water throughout the year. They cause much erosional activity in its upper course. Okay, and not only this, but in the middle and the lower course, they form various types of depositional landforms. Okay, and some of the important landforms are the meanders. Okay, the oxbow lakes, the deltas. Okay, and these rivers, the Himalayan rivers, they flow for a long distance. Okay, so these are some of the important characteristics of the Himalayan rivers. So now let us study about the peninsular rivers. Just wait. On the other hand, a large number of the peninsular rivers are seasonal rivers. Okay, like the Himalayan rivers, they are perennial in nature. They have a continuous supply of water throughout the year. Okay, but the peninsular rivers, okay, a larger number of the peninsular rivers, they are seasonal in nature. That means they does not have a continuous supply of water throughout the year. Okay, they have water supply only during the rainy season. Okay, only during the rainy season they have enough supply of water, but during the drier season, most of the rivers, okay, they get dry. The flow of the water reduces. So a large number of the peninsular rivers are seasonal as their flow is dependent on rainfall. Okay. So basically the flow of the peninsular rivers, okay, it is totally dependent on the rainfall. And during the dry season, even the large rivers, they have reduced flow of water in their channels. Okay, during the dry season, even the large rivers, they have reduced flow of water in their channels. Okay, means they does not have enough supply of water, okay, during the dry season. As compared to the Himalayan rivers, the peninsular rivers, they have a shorter and the shallower courses. Okay. As compared to the Himalayan rivers, the peninsular rivers have shorter and shallower courses. That means the rivers, okay, they does not like the Himalayan rivers, okay. The depth of the Himalayan rivers are very much high, means they have a greater depth. But whereas the peninsular rivers, the depth is not so much, okay, but they are more wider because the Himalayan rivers, they cause much like downward erosion. Okay, they cause much erosional activity at its base, but the peninsular river, they cause much erosional activity on the banks actually. Okay, so the peninsular rivers are more wider than the Himalayan rivers. Okay, because the Himalayan rivers, they cause more downward erosional activity. Okay, so the peninsular rivers, they have shorter and the shallower courses as compared to the Himalayan counterparts. And however, some of them originate in the central highlands and flow towards the west. Okay, and some of them, they originate in the central highlands. Okay, some of the peninsular rivers, they originate in the central highland and they flow towards the west direction. Now, one thing to be noted, just keep one thing in mind, that most of the peninsular rivers, okay, most of the peninsular rivers, they drain into the Bay of Bengal. Only the exceptional is the Narmada and the Tapi river. Okay, the most important rivers of all the most important peninsular rivers, the Narmada and the Tapi are the exceptional. Okay, this Narmada and the Tapi, they originate at the central highland. Okay, so you know that the central highland, it forms the northern part of the peninsular plateau. Okay, so the Narmada and the Tapi, they originate at the central highland and they flow towards the west and they drain into the Arabian Sea. But the other peninsular rivers which originates in the Deccan Plateau region, okay, they flow towards the east. That means they flow towards the Bay of Bengal and they drain into the Bay of Bengal. Okay, because the rivers which are originating in the Deccan Plateau region, okay, they are originating from the Western Ghats. And as discussed earlier in chapter number 2, that the Western Ghats are higher in elevation. They are higher in height, okay, as compared to the Eastern Ghats. So the rivers originating in the Western Ghats, they basically flow from the west towards the east and they drain into the Bay of Bengal. Okay, so most of the peninsular rivers, they drain into the Bay of Bengal, and only the exceptional is the Narmada and the Tapi. Okay, the Narmada and the Tapi are the two rivers which drain into the Arabian Sea. Okay. So can you identify two such large rivers which drain into the Arabian Sea or which flow towards the west, the Narmada and the Tapi? Okay. So most of the rivers of peninsular India, they originate in the Western Ghat and flow towards the Bay of Bengal. Okay. So most of the peninsular rivers of India, they originate in the Western Ghat and they flow towards the Bay of Bengal. Okay. So this is what about the differences between the Himalayan rivers and the peninsular rivers, or you can say the characteristics of the Himalayan and the peninsular rivers. Okay. So I'm just briefing out in short about the basic differences between the Himalayan and the peninsular rivers. See, the Himalayan rivers, they originate from the Himalayas, whereas the peninsular rivers, they originate in the Western Ghat or in the Central Highlands. The Himalayan rivers, they are perennial in nature. That means they have a continuous supply of water. But the peninsular rivers, they are seasonal in water. Okay, they does not have a continuous supply of water. The Himalayan rivers, they get its water supply, okay, from the melting of the snow, glaciers, and rainfall. Whereas on the other hand, the peninsular rivers, they are totally dependent on rainfall for the water. The Himalayan rivers are, they have a very long course as compared to the peninsular rivers. Okay, whereas the peninsular rivers, they does not have a long course. The Himalayan rivers, they cause much erosional activity. Okay, the peninsular rivers, they does not cause much erosional activity. Okay, so the Himalayan rivers, okay, which drain into the Bay of Bengal, they form the deltas. But whereas some peninsular rivers actually, only like Narmada and Tapi, which drain into the Arabian Sea, okay, they form the estuaries. But majority of them, they form the deltas. Okay, so these are the basic differences between the Himalayan and the peninsular rivers. Okay, so in our next class, we will be discussing in details about the major Himalayan rivers, that is the Indus, Ganga, and the Brahmaputra. Okay, so we'll be discussing from where does the river Indus originate, what are its characteristics, through which different areas does the river Indus flow. Okay, that we will be discussing in our next class.